Hey YouTube, Chris with RC Worst here. Welcome back to another great RC Worst video. So what we're doing today is we're going to do a filter performance test. I've got a rig set up here, so we're going to know the incoming pressure and the outgoing pressure. So just remember, in, out, and we're going to be running these filters through. The idea here is we've got a blown poly filter, we've got a pleated polyester filter, and then we've got a polyester wound string filter, and it's kind of hard to get clear, definitive answers on which one of these performs the best. So we're going to do a variety of tests and see which one actually performs the best. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and reveal what the prices of these filters are and determine whether or not the price that they are matches the performance. So this should be a pretty fun one, so stay tuned. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and weigh these up. We got the string one up first, and I think we're about, we'll call that one 5 3/4 ounces. So the string wound, 5 3/4 ounces. The poly blown, well, this one's pretty light. So between 4 and 4 1/2, so we'll call that 4 1/4. And lastly, pleated, and the pleated looks like 4 ounces. I would not have guessed that this one was going to be lighter because of the rubber. Now let's get them wet and weigh them. All right, so what we're doing now is we're going to weigh these wet. I went ahead and soaked these for about 10 minutes, and we'll see what they weigh sopping wet. And I actually held it over the bucket of water that I have until the dripping stopped, but you can see it's still got some water coming out of it, but that wasn't dripping out of it before. Let's see here. Definitely quite a bit heavier. I'd say this one is going to be 9 1/4 ounces for the string. The poly blown, this one didn't seem like it absorbed very much water. It kind of just seems like it's almost still dry. Let's see, so that one is 4.75. So that one only went up 1/4 ounce. Not a whole lot of water in there, as you can kind of see. And now the pleated, it's still dripping a little bit. Let's let it kind of do its dripping. And done dripping. All right. Looks like 7 1/4 for the pleated. So by far, the pleated is holding more water. So the first test we did was the wet test to see how much water they have. Just to give you guys an idea for the control we used, we just put them all in a bucket of water submerged with a weight on top for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes or so. And then we pulled them out of the bucket, let that moisture, we just held them steady until the drip stopped, and then we weighed them. So we tried to keep it as consistent as we could, and it definitely looks like the pleated holds a lot more water. You can see as I even shake it now, it's still got water coming out. The poly blown, almost bone dry, and then the string, it's still got a little water, but not quite as much as the pleated. So now let's go ahead and get on to our next test. Okay, so before we get started on actually using the testing rig, I just wanted to walk you guys through what we've got here. So we've got a submersible 20 gallon a minute, 1/2 horsepower AY McDonald pump. That way we can get good pressure and good flow through the filtration system. In order to control the flow through our plumbing here, I've got a discharge here so we can actually spit some of the water out if need be, and we've currently got that calibrated just right. And then so the pump comes up and out, and then it goes back through the filtration system, and then this pipe here is the discharge, which circulates back into the tank. So the idea with this whole setup is you might see this little blue thing in the tank here, or trash can. That's what we're using as a tank right now. And so since a submersible pump, the suction is on about the midline. I've put this tray in here so that we can add our sediment, and then it'll get sucked in through the intake there. At least that's the idea. So we're gonna give that a go. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is just fire up the pump. And we wanted to show you the filtration system without a filter installed so that you could see what the pressure loss is across the filter housing itself. So you should be able to see that on the inlet we're at 30 psi, and on the outlet we're at 25 psi. So this filter housing has about a 5 psi filter drop or pressure drop with the current flow and pressure that we're running at. So that's kind of going to be our benchmark number. And what we're going to do next is start putting the different filters in there, and we're going to then start slowly adding the sediment. And then once the sediment has been added, we're going to continue to add sediment until the discharge pressure is below 15 psi or at 15 psi. So we're looking for 50% loss here. So we'll go ahead and get our first filter in and get going on that. Okay, so we've got our first filter in. This is our blown poly filter, and boy did that thing grow. Not really though, it's just the water making it look like it got huge in there. But it looks like the filter is not imposing a ton of friction loss. We're still at about 25. So you can see there's a little bit of discoloration because our water quality, it had a little bit of impurities in it, but not a whole lot of sediment. So let's start adding the sediment. We're going to measure how much it takes, and we have a 2-inch PVC cap that we're going to be using to add the sediment, and we have a bag of pre-screened sediment here, real fine stuff. Ran it through a 16th inch mesh or a 16th inch screen. So we've got some real fine particles, and any pump is going to be able to potentially suck these up and pump those for the most part. So let's just get adding and see what happens. So we got our first scoop about to go in here. We can see that starting to take effect. I'm trying to add it a little slowly as to not bog the pump down. We're starting to see a significant amount of pressure loss. And I've only added about that much of the PVC cup to it. So this, I leveled it off and flattened it. And I'd say that this filter is done. That's toast. So that was about maybe a little less than 1/4 of a cup, I would say. Because not even half of the cup here. So the poly filter is done. We'll call that 1/3 of our test measurement, the PVC cap. Okay, so we're pulling the poly blown filter out. We got up to about 20 psi is what our drop was when we finally killed it, because it was down about 10 psi on that side of things. So that's what it looks like. So we're going to go ahead and weigh this real quickly and continue on with our tests. All right, so I just wanted to point out, I got to looking at our sediment introduction here, and this is how much didn't get sucked into the pump that that was left over from that 1/3 cup. So I'm going to try to get that out of there and see if I can get an idea how much that is, so we can get a more accurate measurement of how much sediment actually it took to fill that thing up. So just using the PVC hand pump that we built in our previous video to get this sediment out of this tray here. Pretty handy for these types of things. All right, so we're just real quickly weighing up the blown poly. So it looks like we're at 15.75 ounces. Okay, so this is like I described, another level, geez, if I can speak, level scoop going into the pump here. So we'll go ahead and turn the pump on and get to adding the sediment and see what happens. All right, so we are away. And this filter looks to be starting out about the same, 5 psi lost, no significant changes there. So we'll start adding the sediment. About 1/3 of the way or so through the cup. Still pouring here. This filter seems to be doing pretty well so far. now at the bottom of the cup here. Just about done. Looks like we gotta add just a little more. And that's it, just that little bit. So here's what was left in the cup after that one. I'd almost got through the whole cup, so that's pretty good. And we're just now hitting 10, so we'll shut this off and weigh this one now. So here's the pleated filter after we pulled it out of the container. Really doesn't look all that bad, and it definitely held a lot more than the other one, so let's weigh this thing up. That's about, we'll just call that one 11 ounces. All right, so up next is the string filter. We're gonna get that fired up. Here's the dirt on this one, all the same dirt. We'll get to adding. Now the pressure loss on that one, right out of the gate, looked to be a touch, about 1 PSI more. We're about a quarter of the way through the cup now. About a third. Now we're getting close to half. Now we're a little over half. That filter's holding up pretty well though. That is the whole cup. Oh, that last little bit pushed us over the top. It's funny how the last little bit pushes you up over because of the exponential pressure loss that occurs. And we were really getting high over there. So we've got our string filter here. And quite a bit of sediment that just settles at the bottom, and that happened on each one of these. I'd say the pleated and the string had the most sediment that settled. So it seemed like they were somehow able to knock the sediment off and it kind of just fell to the bottom rather than plugging up the filter. Whereas with the the blown poly filter, that first one we tested, it just plugged right up. So that was kind of interesting. But this filter really is kind of crusty and dirty. So I'm guessing this thing really gained a lot of weight. So let's find out. Okay, so let's see what this one weighs here. Whoo, getting heavy. 1 pound, let's say 3.5 ounces. So that's 19.5 ounces. So the last thing we're gonna do as kind of a test that we thought of is we're gonna just quickly and casually, we're not gonna get super vigorous, clean these in a bucket of clean water, and then we'll put them back and run clean water through them and see how effective kind of rinsing them out is. And then you get a comparison of which filters could potentially be rinsed out and used for a short period of time. So we'll do that now. So I'm just gonna take these and kind of dunk them in the bucket here. Just kind of rub them and try to just get most of the immediate sediment off of them. I'm not going to spend a ton of time doing this because this is at least going to give us an idea of whether or not cleaning it is going to be effective at all. So just kind of bang it around a little bit, knock some of that sediment out. Okay, so that one, not perfectly clean, but a lot cleaner than it was. Now we'll get to the pleated, do the same thing. Yeah, that one was crazy, but it looks great now. Okay, now the string one, let's see how this one's gonna finish this water off for sure. I would almost argue the string collected more of the sediment, at least it looked like it did on the outside of the filter. So like I said, not taking a ton of time with this, just trying to get them as clean as I can as quick as possible here, because it's going to at least give us an idea. You definitely see the strings aren't great for cleaning already, because as I rub it, the string kind of is getting ruined. But let's throw these in. We'll go pleated first. Oh, I suppose I should rinse that dirt out of here. All right, poly blown going in. All right, go ahead. Okay, so we're gonna turn on the now cleaned poly blown, see what it does. You know, it's pretty impressive. This one didn't take a lot of sediment, but cleaning it played a pretty big role. Looks like we got a little sediment in our O-ring. You see we're leaking a little bit here. That's probably just a little bit of grit and gravel in these threads here. But not a big deal. We can see, oh, maybe 3 psi in addition to the 5 we're already losing through the filter. So let's throw in the other filters and see what they do. Okay, we got the string one installed now. Let's go ahead and fill her up and see how this one does. And it looks like cleaning that one was also really effective, but we did see it was kind of starting to fall apart. So that's pretty cool. All right, and last but not least, our pleated filter. We'll kick that on and see what happens. Well, similar result. We're leaking again a little bit, but that's okay. We're doing this quick, so no big deal. That's pretty interesting though. We were able to basically get all these filters back to their brand new working condition by quickly rinsing them out. I think the only major concern that you run into cleaning your filters is if you've had the filter in for months and months and you go to clean it, you're probably not going to get any bacteria or anything that's grown off of the filter. So that's another reason you want to change your filters and not keep them for a long period of time. This was just kind of an experiment. So maybe in the spring when you got real bad sediment or something, you plug your filters up, wash them out, throw them back in because you haven't been running them for very long. Anyways, just kind of wanted to throw that little disclaimer out there. I don't really condone cleaning filters after you've run them for a period of time. It's just kind of a health risk. So, and what we're also going to do is, since today is Friday and we're all getting ready to leave, it is 4:55. We're going to take all these filters, even though they've been cleaned, and just kind of out of curiosity, let them dry out over the weekend and weigh them again and compare that to their brand new out of the box weight. And we'll just see what that does too. And then we're going to sum up the video by posting all the different results and so forth. All right, so that was a lot of fun doing that filter testing. That was really interesting actually also. I really didn't expect those results out of the filter cleaning process. I kind of expected the filters to hang on to more sediment. I had this, I guess in my head, I thought that the sediment would kind of bury itself kind of deep within these filters and you'd have a tough time getting it out of there. And clearly as I rub my hand up and down the side, I still kind of feel a little bit of sediment shaving off of there a little bit, but it was pretty interesting results nonetheless. So I kind of decided to rank these on 3 criteria. I was going to get a lot more specific on the criteria that we rank them on based on filter or pressure loss right out of the gate, pressure loss once full, and compare all these different things. And I didn't really need to do that because as we saw, they performed very similar with just a few very distinct things between them. So we're going to grade these on 3 criteria. We're going to grade them on price, we're going to grade them on overall performance, and then we're going to grade them on, and we're going to grade them on washability. That was the third one, I forgot. Anyways, so the reason I'm forgetting is we filmed this last Friday and it's now Monday morning, and I slept once or twice since then, so forgive me. Anyhow, you might find it pretty interesting, but so we've got our nice 3-tiered system here. So as far as overall performance, we're going to give first place to the pleated, and second place to the string, and third place goes to the poly blown filter. And the reason that is though the pleated filter didn't actually hold as much sediment, it looked like the pleated filter kind of deflected a lot of the sediment, and it accumulated at the base of the filter sump. And I don't know, go back and watch that section of the video, or maybe we'll just show a quick clip of that. But to me, that kind of led me to believe that the surface area of this filter worked really well at preventing the fine particles from going through it, and then those that didn't go through it kind of just fell to the bottom, or at least the heavier stuff. So it seemed like we had to add a little bit more sediment for this filter, but this is kind of a hard one to gauge because the string filter and the pleated filter performed pretty close to one another, but the string filter definitely had a lot more sediment kind of lodged into it, and it was more difficult to get clean. This one I kind of just put it in the bucket and swished it around, and it was pretty clean. So it was kind of a tough choice, and I'm a little bit torn, but we're going to go with that one. On price, it's pretty interesting. So these two filters are actually, to the penny right now on rcworst.com, the same price. So these are $3.65 a piece as of right now, which makes them a pretty affordable filter, and it kind of paints the picture that we saw really similar performance and the price is really similar. So in some ways, price is a good representation of what you're going to get, because this filter, the poly blown filter, was definitely the cheapest filter. The poly blown filter was $3.42 versus $3.65. So we're not talking about a significant difference in price, but there is a little one. And when we saw the performance comparison, I would almost never consider running this poly blown filter in my own home, just because of how quickly it gets full, and it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. But it was really easy to clean, and probably the easiest to clean, and I was really surprised with the performance of this filter after we cleaned it. So there is something to be said for that. And I think that as you get bigger, obviously these smaller filter cartridges are not what you're going to be using for a whole house filter or something larger. So as these get bigger, the pricing difference between them definitely gets bigger as well. So this style of filter in a whole house cartridge is going to be a lot less expensive than like a pleated or a string wound filter. Typically the pleated are the most expensive, and that's why I had high expectations for the performance. So enough rambling, on to the next criteria. So on the washability standpoint, here's what I'm going to go with. So the poly blown was by far, I think, the easiest to wash. It's kind of got this almost hard plasticky feel to it, so it cleaned up really easy, and I was pretty satisfied with the performance that we saw after. All three of these were almost like new out of the box after we cleaned them, I think with the exception of the pleated. I'd have to go back and look at the footage. There was one that had about 1 PSI more than the other two. But anyways, so this is kind of the order that we've decided to award those. So I thought that this was a really interesting video. It solved a lot of questions for me about filter performance and how they compare, and it kind of makes me look at these filters a little bit differently now. So we had a lot of fun making this video. I hope that you got something out of it like I did. These filters are pretty impressive to see the differences between them, but then the similarities in performance, and it definitely truly paints the picture that you get what you pay for when it comes to water filters. So I know that there are a lot of ways that we could have probably done these tests differently. If you have an opinion on that, or maybe you have something that you'd like to see that we didn't do, put that in the comments below. We'll definitely take a look at that, and I'm not opposed to maybe putting these filters through some more strenuous tests, maybe some endurance tests. I don't know, whatever kind of ideas you come up with. So thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great content, and we are always posting videos Tuesdays and Fridays, so make sure that you catch those. We'll catch you next time.